My name is Bodhi. I'm an uncle who yaps about games that I'm passionate about. Okay, so originally, I wasn't going to make a video about this. However, having played with the patch for a little bit, I can definitively say that this is probably one of the worst patches GGG has made over the course of Path of Exile 2. So, let me explain. If you've been playing PoE2 over the holidays, which, first of all, I don't blame you. I mean, I freaking love this game. But second of all, you probably know about all the shenanigans that have been going on with the Vault Temple and people printing divines more than an 8-year-old me with access to my school's copy machine and a love for Magic the Gathering. It all started with the release of the League. The Vault Temple felt extremely unrewarding in the endgame. Something you could come across in a map and basically completely ignore because the time investment you needed to make any form of profit from running it as opposed to doing maps and farming other ways, it just didn't feel worth it. Seeing this, GGG decided to roll out some buffs just before the holidays, before they left to go, well, do whatever they do in New Zealand.
It's business time.
They added some buffs to the temple loot itself. They added a little chest whenever you charge up your beacons and some other miscellaneous changes that just improved the overall loot that you'd get from running the Vault Temple. Great, awesome. What could possibly go wrong? Well, of course, if you've been keeping up, then came the controversy. A bit of a campaign exploit. So normally you have to run a map, right, to charge your little Vault Temple crystals thing. You need 6 total charged. You can run a map, it'll charge 2 if you're on a tier 15, sometimes 3, whatever. Then you can go down, to your Vault Temple once the things are charged, set up your things, place your tiles, do your map, go back to mapping. However, the community figured out, I'm sorry, I don't really know who it was, that you could just go to this map right here, Holton, spawn at the waypoint, run up to the right, charge your little beacon, and then go back to the waypoint, reset your instance, and then just do it all over again. Now, overall, as long as your character was still considered in the campaign, around level 67, because, of course, you would simply be able to run and charge your Vault Temple up in about 2 minutes. Each run from the waypoint to the thing took like... So yeah, what people would start to do is level a toon, or an alt character, specifically to run Holton over and over and over again, and like max out their temple, get these really long snakes to get these insane rewards from the Vault Temple. And if you have personally tried to like do this normally, where you're going around and just mapping, trying to fill out your temple, you know this is pretty stinking wild. Anyway, this method spread like a wildfire over Christmas. People were doing this exploit left and right. I tried it myself. It wasn't really for me. I kind of felt like I was just abusing the system. But like whether or not you thought the exploit was good and you wanted to do it, kind of didn't matter. People were going to do it anyway. So people abused it to the point where each temple run would give you upwards of, 100, 150, 200 divines per temple run, which is wild. I mean, that is if you have a min-max setup. However, given the speed at which you normally get currency in PoE2, that is just an insane amount of money for so little time investment because of the Holton exploit. So this kind of just threw everything out of whack. Hello, welcome to part 2 of my TED Talk, where we go over exactly why the fuck this even matters. So, currency in Trade League. Let's talk economics. I hate doing this. Generally, it follows a pretty, steady curve. You got your divines, your mirrors, your exalts, right? Divines are worth a certain amount of exalts, mirrors are worth a certain amount of divines, so on and so forth. Items are worth a certain amount of div. The value of divines and mirrors generally dictates how, much everything else in the game costs. If divines are kind of worthless and dropping like candy, everything else is gonna skyrocket in price because there's so many divines floating around in the market. Now, I understand not everyone is playing PoE2 to get a degree in economics. Trust me, I am quite possibly the laziest person on earth. But even I decided to do some research in this league and actually put some effort into editing a video. Wow. Anyway, bottom line, TLDR, TLDW, just shut the fuck up and move on, is this. It really screwed the economy over for 90% of the player base who wasn't doing this exploit and didn't have a full min-maxed temple setup. So PoE2 is a live service game. It's something with a really active player base. It's got an active economy, amazingly deep systems that the community is always trying to find new interactions with, and tons of passion behind every player's build, playstyle, the things that people do in the game. People love this game, myself included, so when shit like this happens, it's kind of a big deal. It has some pretty large ripple effects throughout the PoE community. Obviously, at some point, GGG's gotta respond. And, well, one way or another, they finally nerfed that Holton strat, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong, it was very clearly an exploit. This was not intended by the devs. However, there was a question in my mind after this. With how much currency was being, dropped in temples, how would GGG address this? Would they let it keep going until the end of the season? Would they nerf temple in a way, that's meaningful, that impacts the people with min-max stuff like that? Well, sad answer. About a week later, we got our answer. And here is where, in my opinion, grinding gear games done fucked up. So let's go over the patch notes and their impact on the Vault Temple itself. So first, added diminishing returns to the modifier values applied by rooms. This doesn't kick in unless you have 4 or more of a given room type placed. Okay, cool. This affects people with insanely long snakes on their temple, getting buckets of divines and showering themselves in currency. Wonderful. It might not be crazily actually impactful in the long run, because they're still getting a lot of stuff, and people who have a temple that is already developed just can kind of farm currency the best way in the game. But you know what? It's an attempt to nerf that strat. I can live with that. Second, a medallion I'm never going to try to pronounce its name for can now only be placed on tier 3 rooms. Fuck. This may seem like a small change, but in reality, dear God, this is horrific to anyone who was even attempting to build their little snake thing throughout the entire temple. And I was one of those people. I had just started to experiment with the Vault Temple. I think this is, by and large, the dumbest motherfucking thing they could have done to try to balance this. Disabling locking non-tier 3 rooms essentially kills the concept of snaking altogether, unless you want to take like 3 months to get a medium snake going. It's probably the biggest and dumbest change to Temple, and I'll explain more why in a bit. Third, the rooms which bonuses are increased by Golemworks or Spymaster room types have been swapped. Meh, not really a big deal. It impacts some stuff, right? But And fourth, they fixed a bug in a post 0.40 hotfix that caused temples to spawn even more magic and rare monsters than intended, especially at lower levels. This is just a reflavored nerf to temple. It's disguised as a bug fix. Maybe there was a bug, who cares? Finally, a day after these nerfs, we got this patch here, which changes the probability of a room getting destabilized whenever you finish or close your temple. It doesn't affect it if you've cleared its Siri or if you've done the architect. I don't write the thing down, so I don't have it to look at. But verbatim, here's what it says. Transition. So, why do I think the medallion change is a dumb, stupid, idiot change for dummy idiots? I'm so heated talking about this. It pisses me off so much. I hate it. There is one group of players that this change impacts the most. It's not the people who exploited. It's not the casual players who haven't really messed around a whole lot with stuff. It's the group of people who were just getting into the end game and trying to experiment with the mechanic. And you guessed it, it's like fucking 90% of the player base. I mean, maybe not. That's probably over-exaggerating, but like, come on. Now, look, I love PoE22. I play it a lot. It's probably one of my most played games this past year besides Clair Expedition 33 and Silksong. Such good games. Something I always say is that frustration stems from passion. I am frustrated. It is genuinely upsetting to see such a panicked change out of pure desperation to fix a league mechanic. And it already felt broken on release. They rashly buffed Temple before going on holiday. They come back and immediately rashly nerf it as soon as they return. Then they panic again by the community backlash and usher out a quick buff that, in the reality of things, doesn't really change a whole lot. Don't get me wrong, I still think the general direction that PoE2 is going in is amazing. The gameplay, the visuals, and the depth, and just everything about the game still makes it one of my favorite things to spend my time on. Honestly, it probably makes it one of the best ARPGs on the market. I'm sorry, Last Epoch, my poor little boy. But this patch really makes me question their balance philosophy. GGG has said multiple times in the past that they don't want to nerf builds mid-patch. However, this isn't a nerf to one particular playstyle. This is a nerf for everybody. If it was just a build, you make the player upset by disabling what they want to do in the game. If somebody spent 30, 40, 50, 100 hours building their temple, and now they just can't keep continuing to do that, or they get less rewards, it's such a backhand to the people who have invested their time and passion into this game. And it isn't just the confusion on design philosophy that frustrates me. These patches, in and of themselves, don't do anything to fix the core issue. The economy's still broken. The people who have these insane temples, they still have those temples and still can farm them. People who are new to the game still probably aren't going to touch the mechanic because it's a little confusing if you don't want to follow flowcharts. And people like me who were just starting to get involved with the mechanic lose all motivation to do so. I genuinely hope that in the future, GGG thinks more about the changes they plan to implement and the impacts they'll have on the player base. If I had to say something positive about this, it's that usually something like this takes a game company a long time to address. GGG was on holiday, and yet they still came back and immediately at least attempted to address the issue. So we know that they're paying attention to the game, even on holiday. They know that the player base is progressing the economy faster than normal, and that needs to be addressed in one way or another. However, I really think that this is something that can still be fixed, whether through a rollback on the medallion change, or through changing how the room placement mechanic works, or hell, a complete overhaul on the temple itself. Whether that comes next league or mid-patch, we'll see. Thank you guys so much for listening to my ranting. I'd love to hear what you guys think of this stuff down in the comments. Try to not be too harsh. I know I was pretty passionate in this video, but This is the first video that I've recorded and uploaded in a very, very long time. And I know it's kind of negative and ranty, but I want to start editing and doing stuff like this more often. I really want to put more passion and effort into the stuff I place onto YouTube. This stuff is intentional. What I do over on Twitch, whether that's making CDPS builds or whatever, not tank monkey slam. Dude, only an idiot would die to this. And by the way, you can join me there if you ever want to. That is more just unplanned kind of casual content. If you like this, you know, do the normal YouTube stuff. You're not children. I don't need to tell you to subscribe to the channel to get like 5. So with that, catch me next time where I find another way to rant about a bunch of pixels changing color. I'll see you there.